A static budget is a rigid financial plan prepared before a budget period even begins. It is built on a single assumption, one specific level of planned activity or output for the upcoming period. To construct it, management relies on two foundational inputs: standard quantity and standard price. Standard price is an objectively determined estimate of what a specific cost should be under efficient operations. It is calculated using engineering or accounting studies, rather than just taking an average of past historical costs. Standard quantity is calculated using what accountants call practical standards. This is the performance reasonably expected from the factory floor, building in normal allowances for waste, routine spoilage, and standard machine downtime. Multiply those two inputs together, and you get the core equation: static budget equals standard quantity times standard price. But businesses operate in reality, not on paper. After the period ends, management calculates the actual results using the actual quantity produced and the actual price paid. The difference between these two totals, subtracting the static budget from the actual results, yields the static budget variance. This table shows an end-of-period variance analysis for Chowdown Incorporated. Look at the direct materials line item. The static budget allocated $911,250. The actual cost was $750,750, generating a difference of $160,500, labeled F for favorable. On a surface-level reading, a massive favorable variance signals excellent management. The immediate assumption is that the purchasing department secured a steep discount, or the floor managers ran a highly efficient production cycle. However, if that variance was actually the result of severe production delays and plummeting factory output, the interpretation changes. The mechanics are simple. If a factory stops running, it stops consuming materials. Costs immediately go down. This generates a massive, favorable variance against the static budget, even if the floor manager was incredibly inefficient during the brief time the machines were actually running. Evaluating performance based purely on a static budget variance conflates two independent variables, errors in output volume and actual operational efficiency, into a single number. To evaluate actual performance, we must mathematically strip out the financial impact of market demand and isolate manufacturing efficiency. We can map this by placing our two formulas at opposite ends of the spectrum. On the left, our actual results. On the right, our static budget. Comparing these two columns directly is mathematically flawed because we are trying to compare different quantities and different prices simultaneously. We resolve this by dropping a bridge directly between them: the flexible budget. The formula for the flexible budget takes the actual quantity from our real-world results and multiplies it by the standard price from our initial plan. By applying standard prices to the exact actual quantity produced, this new budget adapts to any level of production volume. This is a master budget for a company expecting to produce and sell 20,000 units. To convert this into a flexible budget, we follow two steps. First, we extract the specific standard variable costs per unit from that initial master plan. Second, we multiply those per unit standard costs by the new actual volume. This table applies those costs to an actual output of 22,000 units, scaling the material, labor, and variable overhead upward accordingly. However, a critical rule of cost behavior applies here. While the variable costs scale with the actual quantity, the total fixed costs remain completely static. By matching the actual output volume, the flexible budget removes the noise of demand fluctuations, creating a direct comparison for operational performance. With the flexible budget in place, our single static variance mathematically fractures into two distinct actionable components. The first derivative is the sales volume variance, found between the flexible and static columns. Because both budgets multiply by standard price, the price variable is held constant on both sides and is mathematically neutralized. The only remaining difference is the quantity, actual volume versus planned volume. This variance isolates the specific financial penalty caused purely by forecasting errors in sales. The second derivative is the flexible budget variance, found between the actual results and the new flexible baseline. Here, both equations multiply by the actual quantity. The volume variable is now neutralized. The only remaining difference is between the actual price paid and the standard price expected. This fracture creates clear accountability. One variance measures the accuracy of the sales forecast, while the other isolates the performance of the manufacturing floor. This expanded table takes the initial chowdown data and runs it through the 5-column framework. We start at the bottom line, operating income. The total miss remains the same. The company fell short of its target by $97,950. With nearly $100,000 missing, we can finally pinpoint where the failure occurred. We analyze the volume factor first. The company planned to sell 18,000 units, but only moved 16,500. That failure in sales volume directly caused a $64,913 hit to overall profitability. Next, the operational factor. Even after adjusting expectations for that lower volume, factory inefficiencies cost the company an additional $33,037. Looking again at the direct materials row, we can see exactly why the initial $160,500 favorable variance was misleading. The drop in sales volume accounts for $75,937 of those savings, material that simply didn't need to be purchased because production slowed. However, the floor manager did operate efficiently. When evaluated strictly against the material required for the 16,500 units they produced, they achieved a legitimate $84,563 favorable variance. We can contrast that with the performance in direct labor. The lower volume saved $24,750 in expected labor, but the floor managers overspent by $49,500 against the flexible standard to produce that smaller batch of product. A static budget is necessary for plotting an initial destination, but when actual results diverge from the plan, only a flexible budget provides the clarity required to accurately diagnose failures and evaluate managerial performance.